When we think about grammar, our brains usually jump to, well, boring rule books, right? But what if I told you it's not that at all? What if it's actually the architectural blueprint, the master plan for how we build meaning itself? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. How language is constructed, piece by fascinating piece. It's a pretty massive question, isn't it? We use language every single day without even thinking about it. But how does it all actually work? How do we get from just a simple sound all the way to a complex, beautiful idea? Well, let's find out.
So our guide for this whole journey is going to be the table of contents from this Hindi grammar textbook. Seriously, think of this as our map. It lays out every single step of the construction process, from the absolute foundation all the way up to the fancy finishing touches. So let's start at the beginning.
When you're building anything, you have to start with a solid foundation. In language, that bedrock isn't made of stone or steel, it's the individual letter, that single tiny sound. And right here in our blueprint, this first stage is called Varn Vichar, which is basically the study of letters. This is ground zero. It's the most fundamental level of the entire structure we're about to build together. So a Varn is the smallest piece you can possibly have. It's like a linguistic atom. You literally can't break it down any further. Just think about that for a second. Every word, every single sentence, every story ever told in Hindi is built from these same essential tiny particles.
Okay, so once we've got our atoms, our Varn, we can start putting them together to create something bigger. We're making the bricks for our structure. And in language, these bricks are called shabd, or words. This is the very first moment that we create actual, tangible meaning.
Now, obviously, not all bricks are the same shape or size. Let's take a look at one of the most common, most important types, the noun, or as it's called here, sangya. These are the words we use to name all the stuff in the world around us. A sangya, a noun, is really just a label. It's the word we use to point at something, whether it's a person, a place, a thing, or even a feeling, and say, yep, that's what this is. It's how we start to organize the chaos of the world and make sense of it.
And seeing these examples just makes it click, you know? A person, like Virat Kohli. An animal, Moor, which means peacock. A place, Delhi, for Delhi. And it even works for abstract things, like Anand, which means joy. These are the core building blocks we're going to be working with.
But of course, nouns are just one kind of brick. We also have action words, verbs, or kriya, and they tell us what our nouns are actually doing. We'll see how they slot in just a moment.
So we have our basic bricks, our words. But what if we want to get a little creative? Change their shape maybe, add a little detail? Well, that's where prefixes and suffixes come in. These are like our power tools that let us modify words to create all sorts of new and specific meanings. Let's start with a prefix, or upsarg, which you stick on the beginning of a word. So the root word here is nyay, which means justice. But just by adding this one tiny little prefix, to the front, bam, you get anyay, injustice. A single sound completely flips the meaning on its head. That's how powerful these little modifications are.
Okay, now let's look at a suffix, a pratyay, which goes at the end. We'll start with safal, which is an adjective that means successful. But by adding the suffix ta to the end, we get safalta, which is the noun, success. So we didn't just tweak the meaning, we actually changed the word's entire job in the sentence. Pretty cool.
All right, we've got our foundation, we have our bricks, we even know how to shape them. Now it's time for the main event, the assembly. Let's put these pieces together to build a vakya, or a sentence. This is how we express a complete thought. So let's start with just one brick, a simple noun, ladki, which means girl. Okay, it's a start, but it's not really a full thought, is it? It's just a girl. But now, watch this. Let's add another brick, a verb. Gati hai. She sings. And just like that, boom, we have a complete structure. Ladki gati hai, a subject and an action. This is the simplest, most basic form of a complete idea.
But why stop there? We can make it way more descriptive. By adding just a couple more words, we get ek ladki madhur gati hai. A girl sings sweetly. See, now we've added detail and texture to our structure. We're making it richer, more expressive.
Now you might be wondering, how do all these different pieces know how to fit together so perfectly? Well, in Hindi, one of the key systems is ling, or grammatical gender. Think of it like the mortar that holds all the bricks together. It makes sure that all the other words, like verbs and adjectives, perfectly match the noun, holding the whole sentence together nice and tight. And finally, there's call, or tense. This is the crucial piece that tells us when our structure exists. Is this happening in the past, the present, or is it going to happen in the future? Tense is what gives our entire thought a specific place in time, making it truly complete.
So, our building is built, it's structurally sound, it communicates an idea clearly, but it's a little plain, don't you think? Now it's time for the artistry, the design, the decoration, the things that give a building its unique character. In language, this is where idioms come into play.
Our blueprint calls them muhavere, or idioms, and these are expressions where the meaning isn't literal at all. This is the creative, cultural soul of a language. Idioms add color and humor and a depth that you just can't get by following the basic rules of construction.
Oh, take a look at this beautiful example. Eid ka chand hona. Now, literally, that translates to be the moon of Eid. But what it really means is to be seen very rarely. Because the Eid moon only appears for a short time after a long wait. It's this poetic shortcut that paints a super vivid picture, something that literal words could never quite capture.
And there you have it. We've gone through the entire architectural journey. We started with the absolute smallest atoms of sound, the Varn. We combined them into bricks, our Shabd. We assembled those into complete structures, the Vakya. And then we added those final artistic touches that bring the whole thing to life.
Which brings me to a final thought. After seeing how all these simple little pieces can be combined to express the entire universe of human thought and emotion, you kind of have to wonder, right? Is grammar just a rigid set of rules we're forced to follow? Or is it something more? Something that feels a lot like a kind of magic that lets us build entire worlds with nothing but sound?